Today is Thursday, June 10th, and welcome to the 8:30 show. I'm KJ, and every Thursday night you'll find me here at 8:30 p.m. on YouTube at Metro Conservative Media. Please hit the subscribe button, give this video a thumbs up. At the same time, I'm also live on Facebook at Metro Conservative Media's Facebook page. So please like our page and join the conversation by commenting on this video. Throughout the interview, I will respond, or we will respond to your comments during the show. This is a show where I chat with various individuals about their conservative journey. Tonight, my guest is Toni McFadden. She is an international speaker on the topic of abortion and healthy relationships, and founder of the program Relationships Matter. Hi, Toni.
Hi.
Welcome.
Hi. Thanks for having me.
Yes, I am so excited about our discussion, our conversation tonight, and I'm so happy that you were available. And before we started, I mentioned I follow all of your social media, and you're so inspirational and so pivotal in the movement. And so I'm so excited about this interview.
Oh, thank you.
Yes. All right. Generally, I start every episode off with a random question and answer segment. So the audience can kind of get to know you a little better in a fun, cool way. And then afterwards, I'd like to go into really the meat of our conversation, which is abortion and everything that falls with that.
Right.
All right. So let's see here. So let's just kind of a fast-paced, just random questions. So the first one is, what is your most unpopular opinion?
Probably being pro-life.
All right. Okay. Yeah, I know. I was thinking that.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. And then which one of these do you agree with more? Get the vaccine or natural immunity?
Natural immunity.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. And what is a challenge you would never want to face?
Probably the death of any of my children. That's a challenge I would never want to go through.
Yeah. Definitely. I feel the same way. What quality do you value most in your friends?
Loyalty.
Okay. Yeah, I was thinking that too. All right. Well, that's it with the question and answer. Just fun, quick question and answer.
Yeah, I liked it.
Segment. Oh, good. Okay. All right. So, what can you just tell for people who don't know you? Can you just describe firstly what you do as far as your program, and then what got you into the abortion pro-life movement?
So I'm the founder of the program Relationships Matter, and that is simply encouraging our youth to save sex for marriage. And so it's empowering them and giving them tools on what it looks like practically to not only honor themselves, but their future spouse, and come against what the culture is telling them when it comes to relationships, and kind of breaking down those barriers and giving them honest, practical ways on how to live this out when they're being bombarded with a message that sex doesn't matter. You could do whatever you want with whoever you want, and how that is really affecting who they're becoming as adults. And so I'm raising the standard, showing them their value and their worth, and how it's been degraded in our culture. And so my goal is to bring that degradation up to the value where it's called to be. And so it's not just sex, but it's also them as people as well, and really encouraging the youth to think for themselves when it comes to that. And so not only that, then I work with Students for Life of America, which is one of the biggest pro-life, youth pro-life organizations in the country, and I'm their minority and healthy relationships director. And so my job is to wake up the Black community when it comes to abortion, because I'm sure we'll talk about this a little bit later, but it is the number one killer in our community. And it doesn't seem like our community is really understanding that or seeing the history of Planned Parenthood and the racist roots that was founded on that. And so the reason I came into becoming a pro-life advocate is through my own journey and my own story. So I don't know if you want me to share that now, or you have
Yeah,
some other
yeah.
questions. Okay.
Oh, yes, please go ahead and share.
Well, my senior year in high school, I faced an unplanned pregnancy. I was not a believer at this time. Neither was my boyfriend. We had been dating off and on for about 2 years, and it wasn't the best relationship at all. He was a year ahead of me in school at this time, so he was already in college while I was a senior. And I was about to graduate in about 5 months. Found out I was pregnant, and the first thing he said to me is, "You don't want to keep it, do you?" Which is very telling, the way
Right,
he said
right.
that. And I told my best friend about it, and she, first thing out of her mouth is, we got to get rid of this. So I'm obviously scared. I don't want to tell my parents. I was known as like the good girl, so I didn't want to tell them because I was scared they would be so disappointed. So I had just natural fears that any teenage girl would have, because for some reason you don't think it's going to happen to you. And I was about 7 weeks along and went to the abortion clinic. And as soon as I stepped in, I hated it. The atmosphere was absolutely horrible. It was a small room and there were so many girls, which I didn't expect to see that.
Mm-hmm.
And when I went to get a sonogram, the nurse had the monitor face away from me.
Oh,
And
wow.
yeah, and knowing what I know now, that's strategic. They don't want you to see,
Mm-hmm.
but they want to make sure you're actually pregnant. And so I asked if I could see the monitor, and she was very hesitant to show me. But eventually she turned it around, and before I could say anything, she said, "See, it's nothing. It's just the size of a pea."
What?
Now, if you know anything, which I didn't at the
Mm.
time, but if you know anything about fetal development, at conception, you know that child has its own DNA that's separate from yours. It will never be created again. It is the blueprint for their entire lives, how tall they're going to be, their hair color, their skin color, their eyes, everything at conception. And then by 18 days, the child has a heartbeat. And so all of these things, obviously, she's not going to tell me
But let
because,
me
and
stop you. Let me just, if we could back up there.
yeah,
So, why? In a way, I can see where, the argument would be, you're there, and maybe, I don't know, they don't want to make you feel bad, maybe. But what about full disclosure? This is just that's awful. They don't.
mm-hmm,
I mean, you and let me say, as a high school person, honestly, as a college student, I didn't even really understand until I actually had kids, until I actually had a son.
yeah,
I didn't understand the formation of babies and
me
things.
either.
You hear
Mm-hmm.
about abortion, and you hear about, the same thing you said, oh, it's just, a cell, or it's just nothing.
Mm-hmm.
But nobody talks about the formation of the
No.
baby and all of
Mm-mm.
that. And then, but for this woman who is a medical professional to say that,
Mm-hmm.
wow. I'm
Well, it's
sorry, go
very
on.
telling. No, it's
Yeah.
good. It's very telling because she does not value life. Therefore, she would say it's nothing. It's just the size of a pea. Because if you don't value life and you're willing to end that life for someone because of whatever circumstance, and you're not willing to even say, "Hey, are you having second thoughts?" Nothing like that.
Right.
Nothing. I have been told that they have scripts on what to say so that a girl will continue to have the abortion. So I was given the RU486 pill, which is the popular chemical abortion. Now, this was excuse me, this was 1999. This was not even FDA approved until 2001. So they're already giving these pills out. And how this works, for those who may not know, is the first set of pills, what it does is it blocks the hormone progesterone so that the baby basically detaches from the uterus, because then it's no longer getting nourishment from the mother, no longer getting blood flow. So the baby basically starves to death and dies. Now, they weren't able to do this back in 1999, but right now they have what's called the abortion pill reversal. So the abortionpillreversal.com, if you take only the first set of pills and you regret that, you call or go on that website or call the number for that, and they can inject progesterone to get the baby to attach again, and you could save your
Wow.
baby. Yeah.
I didn't even
So
know this was a thing. I didn't even know about this
mhm,
pill. So
this is the
and
first trimester abortion.
oh, that's what I was going to ask you. Okay, okay.
Yes. And what the abortion industry is trying to do right now is send these pills through the mail to women, to girls, without getting a sonogram, without being checked to see if she's actually pregnant. She can have an ectopic pregnancy. You never, and that what they're trying to give these poisonous pills through the mail now,
Mm.
which is the FDA even approved for them to be able to do this, lifted the restrictions for that, which is insane. But for me, 1999, I had complications. I took the first set of pills in the doctor's office, and then after 24 to 48 hours later, I was told to take the second set of pills. And you're supposed to do it, in the comfort of your home, private, so no one sees. And so I was staying at my girlfriend's house because it was just her and her mom. And her mom didn't know what was going on. But I took them and nothing really happened. Now they gave me 2 sets. So when I called, they were very not helpful at all. They were just like talking down to me, like, this is why we gave you 2 sets of pills. Just take the second set and you'll be fine. So I took the second set, and something happened, but the doctor had told me, you would have, the abortionist, I would say, said you will have like a heavy period. That's what it would be like. What
Mm-hmm.
ended up happening is 2 months later, while I was in school, I started severely hemorrhaging. And I'm not going to be too graphic, but if anyone has ever seen the movie Unplanned with Abby Johnson, and the scene where she's taken the RU46 pills and you see her in her bathroom and she's passing the baby, and how much.
Dang.
Now, this is 2 months later. Like,
So
that's how
what happened? So
uneducated I
no.
was. I went through it all by myself. My mom came and picked me up. I didn't tell her what was going on. And I just remember being in the bathroom for hours and went through this for about 2 days, I believe. And not only that, but the day after I went to the abortion clinic, the day after, my boyfriend ends up just completely not talking to me at all, just stopped talking to me. So just think, a teenage girl, you have your heart broken by the boyfriend, you just went through something traumatic by yourself, and then you're not telling anyone about it, and you're about to graduate in a couple of months, and I'm stuffing it down and acting like it's normal. And so these agendas, when it comes to abortion being pushed, like, this is empowering, there is nothing empowering about ending the life of your own child. There's nothing empowering about it. The regret set in very quickly for me, but what do we do when we try to survive? We stuff it down and try to work our way through life, hoping that's just going to disappear. But God's too good to keep us where we're at, and he saw it fit to redeem me while I was in college. And I mean, my life was a wreck after that. I mean, I spiraled out of control for years and had a lot of meaningless relationships. But it was when I was in college and I went to a campus ministry called Campus Crusade for Christ that God really used that to show me the right path that I needed to be on. And what I love about the Lord is that he doesn't waste anything. And he will take all of the crap and all the things that you did against him. And when you surrender everything, he can use it for his purposes. And that's what he began to do. And so I worked for a pregnancy resource center. That's where I had my post-abortion counseling and went through my healing. And that's also when I would share my story with, middle school, high school, and college kids, which is still what I'm doing now, basically, is saying, you do not have to go through this to see that this is a lie. And I'm also speaking to those who have gone through it, that healing is possible and you need healing. Like, this is not normal. It's never going to be normal. So the most powerful part about my story, though, is the guy that I had the abortion with, years later, maybe 8.5, almost 9 years later, came back to apologize to me for the way that he treated me. And that was really powerful because I remember him telling me it was a lot easier for him to walk out of this relationship than to face the fact that we ended the life of our child. And what that said to me was, okay, abortion does not just affect women. It does affect men. It does affect them because they're called to protect. And what he realized is not only did he not protect me, he didn't protect his child. And that stayed with him. And even more than that, less than a year later, I actually became his wife.
The same guy? Oh, wow. Oh, my
Isn't that crazy?
God. Yes. Oh, so you got, oh, wow. Isn't that God.
Amazing?
God, yes.
Talk about redemption, right?
Yes. And you're still married.
12 years. It'll be 12 years in a couple of weeks. And look how God has blessed us with 4 children. And we were able to honor our unborn baby at our wedding. And we wrote kind of like our testimony in our program for our guests. And at the end, we said we're lighting an extra candle to honor our unborn baby. So God, don't underestimate what God can do. And he writes the best stories. So
yeah, I was not expecting that. Especially when you were like, yeah, this guy, he's like
I know, you get mad at him, right?
Right. Oh, wow.
Want to stay mad at him.
So you said you were like, men are supposed to protect it. I was like, oh, this is what a beautiful story. I mean, and this is so what good. Life is about. Yes. Where we go through trials, we go through tribulations. It's not going to be easy, and that's what my whole kind of beef with this culture we're in now, where everything's supposed to be beautiful, everything's supposed to be easy, no consequence, and it actually directly goes against Bible and what God has for our lives. Because look at the story of Jesus. I mean, he's supposed to be the ultimate example, and he did not live a life of ease.
Right.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, just going back off of your experience, I don't know if I'm sure you have in the news. I think it was this week or last week. We have in Texas high school valedictorian. I think Paxton Smith.
Right.
She quickly became pro-abortion media darling after her decision to swap her school-approved speech for one about the what she feels is restrictive heartbeat abortion law in Texas. What are your thoughts on her speech? Basically, just for people who don't know, she made a speech about how she's terrified that she might not have the ability to abort her child should she become unexpectedly pregnant.
Right.
And this isn't the first time, of course, we've seen the actress from Dawson's Creek, Michelle Williams. She made that whole Golden Globe speech about if she
Yeah.
wasn't given the right to abortion, then she may not have the life and may not have become the actress that she has become. What are your thoughts
Yeah.
on that? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I actually did write a post about this,
Mm-hmm.
and I wrote it as if I was talking to my young daughters, because it was disheartening to listen to that and hear the cheers, because these young people are being so desensitized when it comes to abortion. I felt that that platform was the wrong place. It was very, I think, selfish of her to use that time when she wasn't the only one celebrating that day. There are other people sitting there who walked these 4 years with her, and she made it about her agenda and nothing about the years of being. They want to be inspired in that moment, not hearing about something so controversial. But there was a lot of lies through her speech. Although she's very eloquent in the way that she speaks, they were just words. They were not grounded in truth. And when it comes to on the pro-abortion side, they will always often bring up rape. That is 1% of women who have abortions have them because of rape. 99% is because it's an inconvenience, or they're too young, or maybe they don't have enough money. Most of the abortions is not because of that. And she said something of saying, I'm afraid if my contraceptives don't work, I won't be able to basically have an abortion. And it's like, do you hear what you're saying right now? So
Mm-hmm.
you just want to be reckless and do whatever you want and not have any consequences. And if you're in that space, you rather end the life of your child, and that is somehow empowering to tell people. Now, when I wrote about this, I've actually had students from that school write me privately.
Wow.
Who said they were so disheartened by that speech. And some people walked out of the graduation. Some people were so upset because that's not what they agree with, and that's not how they wanted to leave their high school, by hearing that as their speech. So I think
to end
that,
on a note, like you mentioned, to end on a note of where of it's supposed to be a day of inspiration and aspiration,
yeah,
and to talk about death. I mean, it's so morbid to me. But
yes,
there
yes,
lies the problem. People don't look at it as killing a
yeah,
life.
they don't. Mm-mm. No.
So
Well,
how
that's
do
what
we
they've
break
been
that
told.
disconnect? Right. Exactly.
Yeah. It's difficult, but I think what I'm even doing, all the young people are on social media. And so
Mm-hmm.
it's engaging them in this.
Okay.
And
Okay.
now I have boundaries. I'm not going to
Mm-hmm.
engage someone who is just being vulgar and doesn't want to listen.
Mm-hmm.
But if we can have a back and forth debate that is, honest, and, you can have a different opinion, but we need to, be able to dialogue about it. And I've been able to have some conversations like that with those who are on the pro-abortion side. But I've also been like, okay, you're not just going to say all these hateful, demonic things,
Right.
because they're promoting death. I'm not
Mm-hmm.
surprised by
Mm-hmm.
it, but I have had pockets of people who are on the fence, or they are taking time to hear both sides. And it's difficult, but that's where all the young people are. But the
Mm-hmm.
pro-abortion side, they not, I wouldn't say attack, but they have an agenda to reach them and
Mm-hmm.
make them think, oh, it's just a blob of tissue. I'm like, we have advanced so much in
Right.
science and technology. It's
Right.
not just a bunch of cells. I've never seen a woman give birth to anything else but a baby. Okay,
Right.
what else is it? It's a
Right.
baby.
And that's another thing as far as the science has really been on the side of pro life, because now we have such a better visual of
Yes.
everything. I
Hmm.
remember it was about, I think it was 2 years ago. I went to the Maryland State Fair, and I worked at a booth for the it was, oh, it wasn't pro, it was national, something national pro life movement, or something like that.
Okay.
I can't even. And they had an exhibit where it showed you the steps or the cycle in birth while the
Yeah.
baby or fetus is in your body, and they actually had the
Hmm.
actual baby, like the size there.
Wow.
Now looking at this, this is my first time looking at something like this, and again, I'm a parent.
Yeah.
um, and I'm looking, and I'm just like, oh my, like you could actually see they actually had little
Hmm.
babies that show the size of the baby, and people will come up to the booth and they look.
Yeah.
There's so much lack of knowledge on this, and
Yes.
it's
Hmm.
like you mentioned, the science is on our side, because now
It
we
is.
can see this and know that this is
Hmm.
not just a clump of tissue.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
And we have to educate and we have to speak out and not be afraid to speak out, regardless of the pushback that you'll get, and keep moving forward. I mean, the truth will always prevail, no matter
Right.
how much I get hateful comments or whatever. It's because it's bothering them, because the light, I mean, the darkness doesn't like to be exposed.
Right.
So,
And let me ask you this, because one pushback that I do hear now, because like you mentioned, the science is there. We see that this is
mhm,
not a clump of cells. So then
right.
the other pushback you hear is, well, what's going to happen when the child comes? If someone's, living in poverty or living in an
Hmm.
abusive relationship, you guys
Right.
care about the child and the body, but you don't care when the baby is born.
Right.
What do you
Right.
say to that? Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, I think I have a lot to say about that.
Mm-hmm.
But number one, I think that because we are not willing to protect our most vulnerable, who cannot even speak out for themselves, they cannot march through the streets, they can't say anything, they need an advocate. Um, I think that this is why we have all the issues that we have outside of the womb, because it's a root of not taking care of our most vulnerable. And I think that it's backwards to say we need to fix everything on the outside in order to bring life into the world. We're not God. We don't know how their stories are going to progress. And how are you placing value because someone doesn't have a lot of money? You say, oh, they don't deserve the right to live. Like that's your view of life. If you have to have, I don't know anyone who has a perfect life. I don't know anyone who hasn't gone through some kind of suffering, some
Mm-hmm.
kind of, issue. I think it's misplaced compassion. I do think there are obviously things that need to be fixed in like our foster care system. Yes, those are things that I think the pro life movement is working on. But it's the pro life movement that is taking care of the woman and her baby outside of the womb. Just recently, I helped a girl. She was 5 minutes from her abortion appointment, and I was able to talk to her, and she didn't go through with it. And I ended up setting up a baby registry for her. Everything was bought in 2 days for her.
Mm.
We threw her a baby shower. She had more than enough than what she needed. And I still have a relationship with her. Does she still have some unknowns for the future? Yes, but no one knows exactly how their future is going to plan
No.
out. But I'm saying to those who are pro abortion, what are you doing?
Mm-hmm.
Because I know there are over 2,000 pregnancy resource centers that outnumber the abortion clinics, who
Mm-hmm.
have maternity homes, who have their houses waiting, have space in their houses just for a woman in crisis. I have a woman who wrote me and said, hey, if you ever have a girl, I think she lives in Missouri, but her husband passed away last year, and she has this big, beautiful home, but she put a space aside for a girl who's in need, who might be dealing with a crisis pregnancy if she needs to get on her feet. So you just don't hear about those things, but it's happening all over the place. We're the ones raising money and paying people's rent. And I don't see, the pro-abortion people doing that. And I will often say, when I get comments like that, I'm saying, okay, well, I have a registry ready for a girl. Do you want to help purchase something for her? Crickets. Yeah, you're the one that doesn't want to help. You just want to use that as an excuse as to murder these babies.
Yeah.
That's really what it comes down to.
Exactly. And one thing that I came across that I didn't know while working for the pro-life organization is there were a lot of people who came up to the booth that weekend who were dealing with I don't know what's the word, mental disability, so developmental disabilities, and they were talking to me and saying, you wouldn't believe, my doctor was pushing us to, have an abortion because of our situation, and they were, we had different disabilities and slight, I don't know if it's mental retardation and things like that.
Right.
And so they say, but we couldn't do it. And here we are, we have 2-3 children. And that I never thought about that side of it. And multiple people, there were multiple couples who came up. So I guess this is kind of like a thing. I mean,
if you have any kind of disability, if your child has Down syndrome, if this, the first thing they're going to say is, we could set you up for an abortion.
Right.
It's their vision of what they value. And if you are willing to snuff out our most vulnerable, that is going to affect the kind of person that you are. And this is why I think we see the things that we see in our society. So
absolutely. I want to change gears for a moment. I want to show you a clip and get your thoughts on this.
Okay.
So I'm going to roll this clip and get your
about
thoughts.
my little babies.
Right.
So it was just there was a loss there.
Should women that are post-aborted, should they be celebrated as mothers on Mother's Day?
The thing that brought this out in me, I was walking around looking at the flowers, and all of a sudden I came to some cylinder. Each one had a rose, and all of a sudden I started thinking about my children that I had aborted. I was a mother for that brief time. I had a child in me, growing in me, and the instincts of the mother was there. And I made the decision that I made at that time because I felt it was the best decision for me. And, I started thinking about my children because I am going to see them one day.
Yes.
Again, in heaven. And so, but why don't I get a rose, or why don't I get flowers for Mother's Day?
That's hard.
Yeah,
I think.
What do you think on that? I had never came across that perspective before. What are your thoughts there?
My thoughts are that it reveals a lot. It reveals that it's not natural, it's not normal to end the life of your children. And I believe spiritually something is released when we are willing to do that only Christ can repair. And yes, I think you're still a mother, but you're now a mother with a dead child. And that's hard. But you cannot be celebrated in the same way. I think it's just, it's just different. And that's the consequences of our actions. And although I'm set free, I will always live with the regret because that is the natural consequences of my sin on this side of heaven. Yes, I'm going to see my child in heaven, but the natural consequences I have to live with while I'm here. And that's something I've had to take on. And I'm very blessed to have 4 children on earth, but you can't go back and change what you've already done. And that's why the pro-life message is so important, so that girls are not lied to and feel that this is no big deal. It is a big deal, and it will change you. I don't care what powerful or emotional words that the pro-abortion side will say to rev you all up and this feminist movement. It's not, it's a lie. It's all a lie. And if I could spare anyone from going through that to understand that all of that is a lie, that's why I share my story. So my heart was broken hearing that woman say that. That's heartbreaking.
Yeah, I felt the same way. And one thing I wanted to touch on is your work with when you talked about relationship matters, and then the idea of saving yourself for marriage, because that's something I feel like maybe about, I'd say like 10 years ago, that was becoming a strong movement, but it seems like now just the culture has just gotten so overly sexualized,
Right.
and so against it. What is something is where you feel like we would break through with that? Because I mean, or do you feel like you're connecting with people on that level and talking about saving yourself? And why would you? Why would a young person want to do that?
Yeah. Well, I think we underestimate young people. I think that they are looking for authenticity because they're surrounded by so much fake on social media, and everything's perfect and the perfect, post and the perfect this, that, and they're always on their phones and they're not in reality. And so when I had the chance to have a group of teenagers in a room and I began to share practical things like, okay, if you want to get married someday, the decisions you're making right now is affecting someone you've never met. And when you're standing at that altar someday, the one question you're going to want to know if you're going to give the rest of your life to someone is, can I trust you? And we trust people by their actions, not necessarily by what they say. And I also talk about the purpose of sex and marriage, which I don't think is really explained very well sometimes. And what I say to them is, when you put a ring on your finger, is that automatically going to make you faithful, honest, and trustworthy? No, you either have built those things into who you are or you haven't. There's no magic in a ring. So all this time through middle school, high school, college, you're told, have sex with whoever you want to. It's no big deal. It doesn't matter. And basically what I'm doing is taking the passage from Matthew 7 about building your house either on sand or truth. If you go around just hooking up with whoever, and then you end up getting married, when hard times come, when the storm comes, what's going to happen? You're going to fall apart. Your marriage is going to fall apart. Why? Because you have to prepare for it. If you don't want to have a divorce, if you want to have a healthy marriage, it starts how you treat relationships now, not when you're standing at the altar and in front of all your friends and family. So practicing self-control right now, being in a relationship, but choosing to have a boundary by not having sex, you're going to actually know if you really care about the person or not, because it's easy to be physical, but a real relationship, you're able to talk and be able to actually really get to know each other. It's not that you don't want to be physical, but what you're saying is, I'm not going to take something from you that doesn't belong to me in the first place. Because the difference is with the culture, what they're doing is they're taking sex outside of marriage, having sex with whoever they want to, whenever they want to, and they're bonding their bodies, but without their lives. So either person has the freedom to leave whenever they want. And then countless people get their hearts handed back to them in a million pieces. And what does the culture tell you to do? Oh, just hook up with somebody else. Is it really working? Is that working? No. And so the reason we wait is not because it's easy, but on your wedding day, you become one. And then that night, everyone goes home. And for the first time, you become one with your bodies, which is actually an expression of what you just did with your lives a couple of hours ago. You brought your lives together to be one, and now sex is an expression of that, and the only thing you're wearing is your wedding rings, which is a symbol that you're protected not by a condom but by a lifelong commitment. That is powerful and
Yeah, that
means so
is.
much more. And we're
Mm-hmm.
degrading sex and making it all about a feeling instead of with someone who has committed their entire life to you, where you grow. So what? You've never had sex before. Some people are like, oh, you got to test drive the car before you buy it.
Right.
You know? But I'm like, I would rather practice with someone over and over and over again that's committed to me in a lifelong marriage than just some random person who's going to
Mm-hmm.
leave in a couple of months. Like, don't degrade yourself like that. You're worth more than that.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's really encouraging them.
Yeah, that
It's not just
is.
about sex. It's about
Mm-hmm.
valuing who you are. And when you have high standards, you'll meet people with high standards. If you have low standards, those are the types of people you're going to meet. So what you dish out is what you get. So
And
that's
so
just a
as a
tiny.
right. And so as a parent, then do you advocate teaching about safe sex and things like that, or is it just straight, we want to save ourselves from marriage, or is it a bit both? How do you?
Yeah, I will be teaching my kids to remain abstinent. Like,
Okay.
you do not want to give little pieces of yourself away, because at the end of the day, when you meet the person you want to spend the rest of your life with, all these people are not going to matter. I have met a lot of friends who did not wait like me, and we wish we would have waited, because now we're like, like, why was I with this person or this person? I've never had anyone who waited for marriage say, oh, I wish I would have slept with so many other people beforehand.
Mm-hmm.
What I want to be on, I want to be open and honest with my children. They're pretty young right now. So we have little conversations, but not the full blown. But we're teaching them we're teaching our boys what it looks like to respect girls. You don't hit them, you don't say these sorts of things, and it's a growing process. But I'm also going to tell them, like, once you give that away, you can't get that back. You're worth more than that. And also, I think it's really powerful when a father is saying that over their children too. It
Yes.
just has a different
Mm-hmm.
point of view. And but we also want to say to them, and I think this is really key, if for some reason you don't wait and you get pregnant or you get another girl pregnant, please tell us. We're not going to
Mm-hmm.
disown you. We're not going to hate you. I think they need to hear those words, because I'm not looking for perfection in my children, because I'm not perfect. But I
Right.
do want to lay a foundation of expectation, but not with condemnation or feel like, oh, I can't tell my parents now that I'm in the, because that's how I felt when I got pregnant. They're going to kill me. They're going to disown me. But if we're intentional about saying, hey, this is what our expectation is for you, and this is why. But if for some reason, and this is not an excuse to say,
Mm-hmm.
just go ahead, but we also want you to know that our love for you is not determined by what you do or don't do. It's just because you're our children. That's why we love you. So I think that's really important for parents to say.
And then what about, you mentioned about it's important for the father to
Yeah.
relay that message too. What
Mm-hmm.
about because there is a line of thinking where boys or men are hunters, and so
Right.
they're supposed to go around, I guess. I don't know.
A different
But
standard for guys and girls.
right,
Yeah.
yeah.
Right.
What's your thought on that?
Um, well, our kids watch us.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the best example is how my husband treats me. They're learning by how he takes me out or the way he talks to me. They see us argue too. Like, they see
Mm-hmm.
us and see we're not going anywhere. We know how to fight well. And I think us together sets more of an example than us even speaking to them directly. They watch us and how we go throughout the day, and the day-to-day things and conflict and in the good, and praying together, and all of those things is shaping their view of
Okay.
expectations of what they're going to want in the future. So not perfect,
Okay.
but yeah.
And how a lot of people that I talk to in the pro-life movement are people of faith.
Yeah.
And that's one thing that I love about the movement. But how do you talk to people who may not believe in God or maybe secular? How do you talk to them and convey the importance of life?
Well, I've worked with people who are not of any faith. There's atheists
Okay.
for life,
Okay.
and they just think it's wrong to kill innocent people, period, which I think is it makes sense.
Right.
And there's secular right to life. So they're secular. They have no religious affiliation at all. They just believe every human being deserves the right to live, the right to life. So there are organizations out there that do not have a religious background who are right in step with the pro-life movement and defending the vulnerable. So, yeah.
Okay. And I wanted to end on the topic of the history behind abortion and how that history plays into the minority community. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, and if you're watching, please research some of this yourself because it's heavy. There's a lot in it. But the first person you should look up is Margaret Sanger. Margaret Sanger was the founder of Planned Parenthood. Before it was called Planned Parenthood, it was called the Birth Control League. And she was partnered with the American Eugenics Society, and she was also the creator of the Negro Project, which her famous line was, "We don't want word to get out that we want to eliminate the Negro population." So after slavery, they knew they couldn't send blacks back to Africa, and they thought if they just left us on our own, we kind of die out. But we were committed. Then abortion was not even a thought. No one would even think that. My grandmother had like 16 kids.
Right.
So,
I had 7. Yeah.
Yeah, and so she pushed for forced sterilization. And currently, even now, we have the highest rate of abortion, Black women. We are 5 times more likely to have an abortion than white women. 88% of Planned Parenthood's mega facilities are within walking distance in our neighborhoods, minority and low income areas. We make up about 12% of the population, yet we account for close to 40% of abortions. And we're dying out. Like, we are literally dying out because of abortion. Planned Parenthood kills in 2 weeks what took the KKK 1 century to kill. 360 Black babies a day from Planned Parenthood are killed. And we want to talk about social justice. It needs to start in the womb. The reason I was outside of the Planned Parenthood in Baltimore painting those streets is because you're not going to see Black Lives Matter in front of a Planned Parenthood. What about those Black lives? They can literally not speak for themselves. And it's Black genocide. And if you want to learn more about this, you can watch a really good documentary on YouTube. It's called Maafa 21. MAAFA 21, and it will take you through the 21st century of how abortion, starting with Margaret Sanger, how it's affecting us now in the 21st century. And if we don't get it together, we are rapidly dying out because the number one killer in our community is abortion.
Yeah. Yeah. And I knew about the history, but is there some way where do you believe people are still in Planned Parenthood with that same thinking where they're trying to kill out the Black population?
I think the higher ups know.
Okay.
I think there are some people who might be ignorant of it and they think they're really helping women. But, Planned Parenthood put out a tweet a few years ago that said, a scary statistic. This was, I believe, it was like around Halloween, and said it was safer for Black women to have an abortion than carry their baby to term.
And
So,
again, this thinking, it's like the liberal media, the liberal side of things always think Black people are these people we can't carry a baby to term. We
yeah,
can't do
always a
anything.
victim.
We don't have any agency over anything.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It's
It's
I don't
always this
understand why more
victim
people don't
mentality.
realize that. Right. Realize that. And
Yeah.
yeah. So you were
Yeah.
about to
I
say
mean,
something. I'm sorry.
I've had 4 healthy pregnancies, and I'm
Right.
Black. So
Right.
I don't know. I mean, I know that they don't give us the best sometimes healthcare, and I think we could start there. And with a lot of young girls getting pregnant, they don't know how to take care of themselves. They don't know about, prenatal care and all of these things. And so they think it's just easier to abort their baby. And then they're being lied to of saying, oh, it's not a baby, or it's just a clump of cells. And, and it's a lie. And I think we have a lot of work to do, and we need more Black voices in the pro-life movement to speak up as well. And I hope that happens. And that's why I'm so thankful that you're giving me this opportunity to speak on this, because it needs to hit hearts, especially in the Black community.
All right. Well, we are almost at the end of our time, but I always ask all of my guests, what is your number one concern, and then what is your number one hope for your community and country?
Yeah. I think my number one concern is that we do not respect or value each other, and that we're constantly being told to look at each other based on skin tone rather than character. And I'm not okay with that. And that's not how I'm raising my children. And so that is a huge concern for me. But I'm hopeful, because I've seen how things in history have been awful, and they turn itself around. And so I believe that God is still on the throne. He knows what he's doing, and he's going to raise up his Esthers. He's going to raise up his remnant to call forth his gospel and spread it to those who are dying. And we get to be in that process. And I believe that he's going to set that mantle on those who are ready to speak his truth. So.
All right. All right.
Yeah.
And are there any events or initiatives, or where can people find you for more information if you'd like?
Yeah. So you can go on my website, ToniMcFadden.com, Toni with an I. And there, if you would like me to speak at your church or your youth group or a conference, anything like that, that's where you would head to do that. And then I'm also on Facebook, Toni McFadden, and then on Instagram, Toni McFadden 12.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Toni. I mean, honestly, I could talk to you for probably another hour because
we'll
we have
to do it
so
again.
much information. Yes, we certainly will. We'll have to have you on again. Thank you so much for taking the time out. Again, if you all have any questions, please reach out to Toni. We will link her contact information with this video. So before, I do have a couple of things to tell you guys. We have the Douglas Leadership Institute is partnering with the Maryland Black Republican Council and the Frederick Douglass Foundation. We are hosting Bob Woodson for Juneteenth, a Juneteenth Jubilee here in Baltimore, June 19th, Saturday, from 6:30 until 10:30. It is going to be an awesome event. Again, Bob Woodson is the keynote speaker. We are having a live band. We're having food. It's going to be a great time of fellowship and a great evening. So if you want more information, please go to the Maryland Black Republican Council's website. You can also go to the Facebook page and Eventbrite. There's an Eventbrite that's where you can purchase tickets. Again, June 19th. It's a Juneteenth celebration, and we are excited. So I hope you are able to join us. Also, again, we're here every Thursday night with the 8:30 show, and then also on Wednesday we have Pop and Politics. So please stay tuned. Like this video if you're watching on Facebook, and share it. This was such an awesome time with Toni, and she's a wealth of information. So please share this with your friends. If you're on YouTube, subscribe so you get notifications when we post content. That's Metro Conservative Media. All right. So again, I hope to connect with you all next Thursday at the same time. Wishing you warm days and starry nights. Good night.